Our guest today is Daryl Thomas. Daryl is the global virtual demand center technology leader at Cisco. His contributions have led to Cisco winning the Stacky Awards several years in a row in recognition of the company's marketing tech stack. Among his areas of focus are omni-channel, inbound and outbound marketing, cognitive and AI, social selling, and leading sales call centers all over the world. We're also going to have some cool tech later in the podcast, covering new technologies like the metaverse and NFTs. Here's our interview with Daryl Thomas. Much for joining us today on the podcast. And just like we were talking about in the intro, you're deeply involved in global virtual sales at Cisco. And this got me thinking about global versus regional sales. You have call centers of sales reps all over the world. So how does this work for you considering factors like time zones, traveling, and international cultures?
Well, I can tell you that without the pandemic, it was a challenge. And now, because of the pandemic, it's even more of a challenge. And so I would say the way we manage that and the way we work with this new normal is we had to take a position that everybody is working from home. Number one, everybody has the responsibility of doing their job and selling in an environment that, is 100% virtual now. In the past, you would have traditional contact centers that were regionally based, that were based on language, based on region or country. And then that respective seller, would have responsibility for that region or language or country. Well, now, since the pandemic, we've had to become much more distributed in how, the sellers cover those regions or how they cover those languages and countries. And then on top of that, one extra layer of complexity that we have made an adjustment to is selling per architecture. So not only do we sell globally in these various regions supporting different languages, our sellers are also specialists as it relates to a specific Cisco architecture, like collaboration, like security, like infrastructure and data center.
Appreciate your international perspective with that. It's not always easy, and I think you don't have that relationship, being able to go out to dinner and have drinks and dine together like you used to overseas, and now we're just always on.
And well, one other thing I would say, to that point, 2 points. In pre-pandemic times, you had these pure contact centers where, all of the sellers were physically in a building on the same floor. It was a sales floor. So imagine what a typical sales floor would be like. People are on the phone, they're having meetings, they're chatting, hey, I just closed this deal, ring the bell type of thing. Well, we don't have that anymore, right? So, all of that is now being done virtually. So we've actually, have embraced some gamification capabilities and software where we are promoting, contests and trying to, instill that collaboration between the sellers, even though they are not physically located to one another. And I will have to tell you, on the international travel side, I really do miss that. I miss the interaction of, meeting with these, sellers face to face and listening to their needs and concerns one to one. But I will tell you that we've done a pretty good job in that transition, and we're seeing it in our numbers.
I love it. I love the gamification. Back to you, Nick.
With everything going into a virtual environment, I mean, that has to have put a lot more reliance on technology. Your company has won the Stacky Award for your sales stack several years in a row, and it also ranked among the top 10 Fortune 500 companies in the world. What's that experience been like?
pretty cool, actually. What it creates is a lot of interest internally within Cisco to come knocking on our door to say, "Hey, Daryl, how did you do this?" Or can we see the results of what you've implemented? Or tell us more how you did it. And so we get that, internal interest, but then we also get this external interest and demand around, best in class or best practices. So when they see Cisco and they see us, again, achieving these awards, it's really more about, okay, Cisco, how are you using, sales tech stack technologies, and how are you using MarTech, technologies, and then more importantly, how are you using your own Cisco technologies? Because a lot of the things that we've done here, within my organization, within our tech stack, I've been a very strong advocate of Cisco on Cisco. So for us to, be a positive influencer in the marketplace, we have to use our own stuff. We have to drink our own champagne. I don't like using the term eat your own dog food, because what we sell is not dog food, and it's much better than dog food, and people like it. Right? So I would say those three things really have created a catalyst for people knocking on my door wanting to know more. I get invited to executive reviews about what we're doing, our best in class, show us your numbers, show us how you do it, that sort of thing. So it's been pretty cool in that respect.
Not only drink your own champagne, but celebrate, toast the bubbly to your success. I mean, you really, I've had the pleasure of having Daryl walk me through on a whiteboard, and just talk and just listen about MarTech and the strategy and sales and marketing alignment through the tech. And it's pretty phenomenal, what you've been able to do in leading this globally. And, I think, when you look at retail, you're always considering the e-commerce and all the newer things that are happening with the omni-channel approach of, buying online, picking up in store, or the add to cart functionality, or whatever it may be. And, that's definitely a component of tech beyond just electronic data interchange, which is the procurement inventory management piece of it. But, really on the sales and marketing side, it's essential. And, seeing Cisco win these techie awards is a true testament to what you've been able to contribute to there and your success, Daryl. So cheers.
Thank you very much.
Along with those Stacky awards, we also see a lot of these infographics which show us basically how each piece of software works with another piece in order to assist in these processes. So with insights and business flows, how do your insights in the business flow with all these different systems and processes?
Well, that's a great question. I would say that what we have done at Cisco, we have constructed a data warehouse and a environment where we can centralize our data from our various applications and platforms. So everything from Salesforce to Outreach, the sales acceleration tool, things that we're doing with our chat bots, all these different applications now have exports into this data warehouse, into this environment that we can actually stitch the data together to create insights and to get, the necessary detail around how well are we performing from a seller perspective, but then more importantly, what can we do with those data points to derive insights, whether it's seller sentiment, whether it's customer sentiment, whether it's partner sentiment, whether or not a campaign, that we just released was effective. If we have an initiative around a particular solution, Do we have data points that show it's impacting this particular market segment in Asia better than it's impacting the market in Latin America? We have visibility to do that. So the thing is it's really getting to the point where the data that we have not just provides us insight, but it also gives us a way of having actionable task or actionable responses to the insights and the analytics. So it's not just cool, fancy, cool charts that we can craft and create. It's more about, okay, hey, we have a problem here, or we see an inflection here. What can we do to respond to either improve, correct a problem, or even see the trend, right? To predict the future, right? That's a lot of what we're trying to do now, especially since we're moving into this new realm of Web 3.0 and all of this new technology that's coming about. We're trying to get our head around, just like the rest of the industry, how's that going to impact us as an IT and a networking company?
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the data foundation, because in sales, if you have the data, you have the firmographics, you got the contact, the number to call, you've looked them up on LinkedIn, however you go about your research, you've got only a 25% chance of having some substantive dialogue with that particular lead. You add an insight on top of that, boom, your chances go up from 25 to 50%, because you can say, hey, congratulations, I see you just launched a new product. Congratulations, you're expanding your number of stores at a retailer, whatever it may be. And then even better, on top of that data foundation, you've got an insight, something relevant, timely to talk about. You had a connection, a warm introduction, and so-and-so recommended that I get in touch with you because we had worked previously together over at Walmart, and now you're at Target. Now you've got a 75% chance of getting some real substantive dialogue going to move that opportunity along and win that deal. So I love that you talked about that as a foundation, and it's just woven into your infrastructure and your processes.
Yeah, and that actually transforms back into what we do with seller performance. So for our sales managers, we take that data, we take those insights and that analytics, and we position it as coaching, collateral and coaching information that can be used for mentoring or improving a seller's performance. But it also gives us a way to look at what is the seller doing, or what is the seller saying, to your point, Preston, to move them from being a prospect to being a qualified lead, to being a qualified opportunity. And we have ways of looking at each one of those stages and looking at the data to say, hey, if you say this or do that, then you're going to get that progression that you're looking for and the success that you're looking for as well.
You talked about gamification earlier, and I noticed on your LinkedIn you had this great post where you said, no, the metaverse is not a fad. And then there was this image of this guy watching professional sports on his Oculus headset. So what's your take on the metaverse and NFTs?
Yeah, so I just need to share this with you. So Cisco has a 2-week shutdown over the holidays. And during that time, you're, to unplug. So I took the time to, go down the rabbit hole of crypto. And my first intention was, well, let me learn about how to buy crypto and what is cryptocurrency. Well, once I started to get into that, then I quickly learned that, there's a whole lot more to it than Bitcoin and Ethereum and cryptocurrencies and blockchain. And what I discovered is that where we are at right now is a point of transition. And I like to call it a nexus point. And the reason why I'm calling it a nexus point and a point of inflection is because we are at the transition of migrating from a centralized internet or architecture or methodology of how people interact with the web today in a centralized fashion where the data is managed and controlled by, an application or a platform or a social media company, to an environment and an architecture that is decentralized. And that decentralization really is at the heart of what is happening in this crypto ecosystem. And I like to use the term ecosystem because it includes things like the metaverse and virtual lands and NFT marketplaces. And where we're at right now is, if you were to look at a bell curve, you would say that we are at the point where it starts to inflect at the very bottom, where you have these early adopters, primarily technically oriented folks that understand the lingo, understand the jargon, understand the technology. Those are the ones that are trying to figure it out. The general masses are still trying to get their head around what crypto is in the first place. And so this year is really going to be a transitional year and a nexus year, because everything that we've done up until this point with Web 2.0, has been based on how we interact with applications like Amazon or Etsy or Facebook. And, again, you have this centralization, but really the underlying factor is, how are we going to migrate into this metaverse environment that includes, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, digital assets, digital currencies? All of that's going to take platforms and processes and systems to support all of that. And that's where the big opportunity is right now with the metaverse. You've got big players like, Facebook changing their name to Meta and their commitment to Oculus and their gaming platform. Then you have other large companies like Walmart that are getting into the virtual furniture space. And then you have other financial institutions like MasterCard, creating partnerships with Coinbase, to use MasterCard to buy NFTs. And so, really right now, you're having a lot of learning going on. A lot of people are trying to understand what it means. And I'll just say this: if anybody says they're a metaverse expert or a Web 3.0 expert, run. If you think, or if they think they know everything, they don't. I'll just tell you, because it changes every day, right? And it has not reached the point where most businesses understand how it applies to them, nor do they understand the use cases or the user stories, or how can they generate revenue, how can they use it to support their business. It's still very wide open, right? So in my opinion and what I've researched, I think the next 12, 24, 36 months are really going to start to formulate that. And I'll just say this, since we're online here, that I'm driving some conversations internally within Cisco and asking Cisco internal folks, what does it mean to Cisco? How are we going to control the narrative? How are we going to leverage our solutions to support this metaverse? Because think about it, all of this metaverse stuff that they're doing, guess what? They're going to need a network. They're going to need security. They're going to need authentication. They're going to need a way to check the network performance, the computing performance. We sell all that stuff, right? So, I think that's where I see the biggest opportunity.
What a good overview, high level. And I 100,000% agree. This is the future. I don't fully understand it. I'm trying to get my head wrapped around it. I've seen the retailers with augmented reality in particular, being able to show a virtual showroom of, setting up your room with a certain type of decor. I want a, more traditional look or a modern look or a coastal look, and being able to see that end table or dining room table in your own space. And what does it look like with my color scheme? The whole virtual try-ons, where you take a company like Sephora, for example, and trying on different makeup and lipstick, or even a jewelry company to see, what do those earrings look like on me, a pair of sunglasses. Right. These are smart glasses. These are Amazon Echo frames, and I've started to, leverage that to be able to, make a quick phone call or listen to music and do those types of things. But, this is really the next level when you get into the metaverse and you get into NFTs, and how do retailers leverage that for marketing? At the New York Fashion Show, there was a QR code to go out to immersive experiences, and you like that particular dress, for example, that the model's wearing, where you can scan the QR code and go out there and experience that through the NFTs that are there in the metaverse. I really think that this whole Web 3.0 and all of this is a completely untapped, not even fully understood opportunity. I wonder, Daryl, how much of my investment portfolio should I be investing in crypto and NFT? The Romans said, "Fortune favors the brave," right?
Yes. Well, this would be my advice, and I'm gonna take my own advice here as well. We are very much early in the game, and I would say two things. First is, yes, you can invest in a currency and look at it as a short-term play investment, even a long-term play as part of your investment. It should be part of your, overall investment portfolio. It shouldn't be all of it. That's the first thing. But the second point I would make is the sweet spot in all of this is not just in the currency, but investing in those companies that are building these applications and building these platforms, like Solana, like Avalanche, like Polygon. They are platforms that are beginning to simplify how end users will use cryptos or will use a smart contract to, send or remit money from one person to the other, or how money is transferred from, an individual to a financial institution, or if I want to buy an NFT, what is that process or platform, used to do that? So the investment in those companies that are building the building blocks of the metaverse and Web 3.0, I think that's the sweet spot. That's the biggest opportunity, in my opinion.
And one of the most interesting things to me about the metaverse is that the concept of a game with an open world, we've seen that as far back as the late 90s with games like Ultima Online, where you would see not only an open world, but even a community of players who would gather to do things like, let's say go to an auction house and bid on virtual items. So it's going to be very interesting to me to see how Facebook brings the concept to a broader audience. Now, taking things back to the real world, Preston mentioned that you give back to your community by helping kids out with football. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm a football guy at heart. I played in high school and college and did some semi-pro. Never made it to the professional level, but always had a desire to coach and give back to young people for the love of the game. And so started many years ago at the youth level, the Pop Warner level, and then upgraded to the high school level where, I ended up coaching at a varsity level for several years. And then something just came into my spirit and said, you need to create your own football league for those kids that could not play for their high school because of grades, or they got in trouble, or, there was some other issue, that they couldn't play for their local public school. And so I created a football league called the Carolina Football Development League, ended up with 9 teams that provided a prep and a post-grad level opportunity for those types of individuals that, couldn't make it to college for grades, or went to a community college where there was no football. And, football is one of those sports where, unlike basketball, baseball, and many others, you have these club teams or these AAU teams. Football doesn't have that, right? And so it kind of filled that niche. But the key, though, was not just learning the game, but it was all about making them a better person. So we took the concept around the whole player. So the whole player concept is, number one, what is your football skill set? What is your financial skill set? What is your academic skill set? And then how can we apply life skills to that? So many of the young men that went through my program, none of them went pro. Many of them did go to colleges. Some of them, went to some larger schools. Most of them went to like a D3, D2, JUCO, and were successful. But what really warms my heart is when I see them out in public and, they're raising a family and they're a good dad, or they took a job as a fireman, or, they're doing well in their career in whatever field they decided to go into. And I hear often that, thanks coach for setting me straight, so to me, that is, more important than, learning how to run or how to catch a ball. It was really more about how to make them better people.
That is awesome. And, when you really take a step back and you think about all this business that we're immersed in, what you just talked about, that's what really matters. And that's the important thing. You're, out there helping to grow and develop, not just for sports, but, for life. And I think that's, really awesome what you're doing and giving back and what you've started with that.
And one thing I will say, Cisco was a great partner and still is a great partner in supporting me in doing these things. We actually had Cisco Tech Days where we actually brought the players into Cisco. We took them on tours, had them talk to other Cisco employees, some of our engineers, just to get them excited and interested in technology, right? And the whole field, that is open for them. And some of them, took that path. And so, what I try to do is, especially now, try to keep that foot on the football and on the tech side and kind of blend it, in the best of both worlds to share the opportunities in both spaces.
I love it. That's awesome.
That's great because football is such a popular sport. It's going to be a great way to teach kids concepts like teamwork and discipline, where, other avenues of doing so might not be quite as appealing as a sport like football. And then if you're open to it, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out to you?
Well, they can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. They can DM me directly. They can also reach out to me, via my email address. I'll reply there as well. And, we can take it from there.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, we just appreciate having you on, Daryl. This has been really fun to talk tech, to talk football. And now I'm just going to go away thinking about the metaverse and NFTs and what's next. So always so great to connect with you. We really appreciate having you on. Our listeners are just going to get a ton of value from understanding your perspective at, one of the leaders at one of the biggest companies in the world in doing this. And it's really just a great inspiration. So thank you so much for being on with us.
I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to further conversations in the future. Appreciate it, Nick. Thank you, Preston.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Merchant Matrix podcast. And check out matrixplace.com, the place to go for all your digital sales and marketing consulting needs. matrixplace.com.